Hey y'all, welcome back. From the title of this video, I can just guess what y'all are thinking. Addie, it's not even February. Addie, slow down. Addie, I'm still working on a sweater. That's going to take me many months more. Addie, it's snowing outside. Heard all of that. I am filming this on a 6-degree Fahrenheit day here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I couldn't be more with you. However, let me give you guys some context on me for just a moment, if you'll indulge me. There's a reason why I'm looking ahead to spring when I'm thinking about my crochet and my knitting right now. First of all, the aforementioned 6-degree Fahrenheit day that I'm currently living through has me like yearning for sunshine and warmth. Also, my partner and I, as I've mentioned on this channel, are moving to a warmer climate, and we're gonna be moving in by mid-February. I'm so excited. That being said, in 2024, I knit like 5 or 6 different sweaters. Y'all, I'm tired. I don't know how else to say it. I'm just tired of doing that. I don't want to do that again in 2025. I guess lately I've been working on some smaller accessory pieces, like winter stuff, like mittens, and I just started making some socks, and I've been making a few hats recently. And all that stuff has just got me realizing like what I think I'm really enjoying is having small pieces that I can whip up within a week. I get the same fun of making something, but I get to make more things and let inspiration hit me at a much quicker rate. And I like that because I'm someone who, like, the minute I start knitting something, I'm thinking about my next idea. So small projects is what I'm thinking about. When you're thinking about spring knits, it's simply just a smaller object that you're making, even if you're making a top. Because more than likely for a spring knit, it's not going to be as big of a project. It's going to be a smaller tank top. It's going to be like a crop top, things like that. I think my mind has been wandering to spring because the nature of warmer weather clothing is that it's just smaller. There's just less material to it than there is for warmer winter garments that are meant to keep your body heat in, and keep you warm in the colder months. So that's why I'm thinking about spring. It's just more relevant to where I'm headed, and it's also just what I'm yearning to knit more right now. Like, my hands just want to work on smaller stuff. So today I have compiled a list of spring projects for us. Now, I have a whole spring board on my Pinterest. I'm not going to take us through every single pattern because then we would truly be here for hours. This is going to be really loosey-goosey. I normally write out scripts for these kind of episodes, but today I'm just going to look at the board with you guys and tell you about my favorite ones, like my favorite projects that I have saved here, just to give you an overview of the kind of things that I'm looking to prioritize for spring. We have some vests, we have some socks, we have a skirt or two, quite a few tank tops, a few t-shirts, and I found some shorts as well. But I'm ready for warm weather, so let's get into some spring knitting and crochet ideas. All right, I have Ravelry in front of me. Let's get into it. I don't have any sewing patterns here today just because I'm not thinking about sewing just yet. I'm sure that I will do some sewing in spring, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I guess let's start with the pattern that I've already purchased some yarn for. And that is the angw slipover by Skeiny Dipping, which, by the way, is coincidentally the best designer name I've ever heard. The angw slipover is a knitting pattern that calls for worsted weight yarn, and the gauge is 18 stitches by 36 rows. I came across this one because I've been wanting to work with Noro Ito yarn for a while now because I just love the colorways that they have available in those yarns. And specifically, I saw that the angw slipover pattern, the designer sample uses Noro Ito yarn as the contrast color. So that kind of drew me to this because it felt like an excuse to get my hands on that Noro yarn. So the angw slipover comes in 2 different styles. So you can knit it as a flat vest that has a button band, or you can knit it in the round and it can be like a button bandless, just solid vest. I just think this is so beautiful, and I love any design that centers itself around making the most of the different colors that you choose. If you can't tell, I'm really into knitting with fun colors. I'm a bit intimidated by this pattern because it calls for mosaic knitting, and I don't really know what is so different about mosaic knitting than other colorwork knitting. I have done both intarsia and fair isle in the past. I don't know how different mosaic is, but it's in a different category than those other colorwork techniques. What I can tell is that it has this like very textured effect to it that in this vest, I think it just really sings and it looks really cool. So hopefully I'm not in over my head here, but I have to say every time I think I don't have the skill set for a knitting technique, it always ends up to not be that big of a deal. So I'm gonna go for it. I'm torn between if I want to do the version with the button band or the version that is just like a solid vest. I'm drawn towards the solid vest because I prefer the process of knitting in the round to knitting in the flat, and I just finished making a sweater that was knit in the flat, and like I'm just miserable when I'm doing that. So I would prefer the process of knitting the solid vest. However, I prefer the look of the buttoned version. I don't know. I think I'm not even going to cast this on until like March or something. So I guess we'll just see. I'll probably be swatching flat anyway, so I'll get a sense of how I like that, and I'll probably do that swatch sooner rather than later. I also do just have to shout out the designer, Alex, because I posted on my Instagram story that I was yarn shopping for this vest, and she responded to it and said that she was excited to see what I came up with, and then I asked her if she had any recommendations for what yarn I should get, and she gave me advice on what to look for. So I really appreciated that. I've actually never had a designer that I wasn't testing for do that for me, so that was really kind. So I'm very excited to make this. Enough on the angw slipover. Let's move on to the other top that I know for a fact I'm making, but I don't have yarn for yet. This is the Space Top by Lil Dunham. The Space Top is a knitting pattern that I believe was actually a collaboration with Ching Fiber. It is a light fingering and fingering weight top. I believe that you could just hold DK weight single for this, though they're saying that you should hold fingering weight yarns together. The gauge is 24 stitches by 33 rows. I love the look of this top. This is so my style. It's basically just this sleeveless tank top that has an open back, and it's knit in a bunch of panels, which I know I just said I don't like knitting flat, but I'm full of contradictions. So it has a seed stitch side panel on both sides, and then it has a flat vest panel on front, and then the back is this like open back tank top section situation. It has a bunch of cool textures going through it and some really cool geometric line designs that I think add a lot of really interesting texture to this top. Just the initial look at the pattern, because I did already purchase the pattern for this one, it looks a little daunting. I just think it's going to be a bit of an undertaking in terms of like the flat of it all, and because the yarn is so small, but it just looks like the finished object of this piece is going to be the kind of thing that like I will wear all the time. I'm a big fan of like backless tops. The thing that kind of has me stuck is I'm traveling right now in Canada, and there's tons of yarn stores here, and so I'm trying to buy as much yarn as I can while I'm here, because also once I move there aren't really any great yarn stores where I'm going, so I'm trying to kind of stock up on some nicer yarns while I'm here. Ching Fiber is not sold anywhere that I'm going to be while I'm here in Canada, and all of the projects on Ravelry of people who have made this were testing for them, so I haven't seen anyone make this with any alternative yarns. All that to say, I'm a bit just like lost on what yarn I should get, because I want to get yarn while I'm here, though I guess I could just wait and honestly order it from the brand's website. But I really do like that the like two fingering strands held together in their sample images. I think that creates like this really nice textured effect in the top, so we'll see what I end up doing. Basically, my point is I'm obsessed with the idea of making this top. I think it's going to be a bit of an undertaking, and I'm kind of lost on what yarn to get. If any of you are watching this and you have any suggestions based off what I just described, please let me know. But oh my gosh, we just talked about both those tops for so long, so let's move on. This next one is a crochet pattern. This is the Khaled shirt by Jessica Sung. So this is a crochet pattern made with lace weight. It calls for a 3mm hook. And oh my goodness, is it so pretty. I love button-down crochet shirts. I just think that they always look so good because crochet gives you like a bit of structure, and I just love the lace detailing in between. Like it's like every 3 rows there's just this row of lace crochet going on, and I think that's really cool. Not for nothing, there's a ton of projects of this pattern on Ravelry, and a lot of people have done some really cool combos with it that are really inspiring to me. I'm just really drawn to how this designer used crochet to make a really cool looking fabric that like both brings out the crochet but looks like something I would actually wear. I think sometimes that's hard to find with crochet wearables, to be honest. I have a ton of lace weight cotton yarn that's sitting in storage right now, and when I unpack for my move, I'm gonna have access to it. So that's what I'll be using for this. I have just like a bunch of cotton, so I think that's what I'll be using. Does this designer use cotton? Okay, they knit this up in a wool silk blend. Oops. Well, I'm using cotton, so I'm excited about this one. I'm excited that I have the yarn for it in stash, and I just want to be doing more crochet in spring. I worked on a crochet hat recently, and it like reminded me that I love crocheting, and I just need to do it more. So the collared shirt will be perfect for that. Moving on. Oh, here's another flat knitting pattern. So this is the Topsole by Mochi Knits. This is a knitting pattern that's worked up in DK weight yarn. The gauge is 26 stitches by 40 rows. I just think that this is a really classic wardrobe piece. Again, moving to the beach, kind of like the space top. I feel like this one just will breathe a lot, and it just looks like something that will be easy to style and something that will be really comfortable to wear. The suggested yarn for this pattern, according to the designer, is linen, and I haven't actually worked with linen before. I've worked with Purl Soho linen quill, but it's hard to call a linen yarn because it's mostly wool. Oh, this is linen quill, lol. And the thing about linen yarn that makes it unique is that there's a lot of stitch definition. So some people don't like working with it, but I want to try it. And I think that it'll be great for a top like this because I think it'll make it a perfect like spring layering piece that then I can carry into summer and wear on its own. I love this design. I haven't bought it yet, and I don't have any of the yarn for it yet, but I think that this will be a cute one for spring. I will say this is definitely one of those things that I'm looking at, and I already want to switch it up a little bit and play with it. I want to either do like some super bright color, or I think I'd want to do some stripes with this. I'm not really sure. I would need to kind of get into the pattern first, like buy it and look it over and see what the process of knitting it is like to see if I want to do stripes or not. But with basics like this, I like to make the color more unconventional because that's when I'm going to wear it more. Like if I knit this up in a neutral, I'm never going to wear it. That's the Topsole by Mochi Knits. Really excited about that one. Let's just stick with tops for now because we're kind of on a roll. Oh, this one was appealing to me. This is the Mooncrush tank. The Mooncrush tank is a knitting pattern knit up in fingering weight yarn. The gauge is 22 stitches by 32 rows. I don't know. I just really like the simple design on this. Again, it's a design that I feel lends itself to making the different colors used in the piece really pop. I'm always drawn to designs like that. I also really love, it looks like there's a nice wide sleeve hole with this top that I think, once again, can you tell I like things that are breezy and don't really touch my body? And I just really like the fit. On both of the models that are on the Ravelry like photo carousel, on both of them it looks like it just fits kind of boxy and nice and wide, and I think that that would make it like a very wearable, stylable top. I also love that it has a bit of a higher neckline. I mean, everything that I'm talking about liking in my knits is literally exemplified in what I'm wearing today, but I just like love a nice high neckline. So this is definitely one that I'm looking at. I don't have the pattern, I don't have the yarn for this one, but I think it looks really nice. My little brain is just going to, I want to do like red, blue, and yellow, you know, like I just want to go full kindergarten with this. I always want to do primary colors, so there's 3 tank tops that I'm like torn between. So maybe actually I can show you guys these and you can tell me if you have any experience knitting them and which one you would recommend. Let's start with a pretty popular design. You guys have probably heard of this one. This is the ribbed turtleneck top. Whoa. What did I just say? This is the ribbed turtleneck tank by Jessie Made Designs. This is a knitting pattern that is knit up in DK weight yarn. The gauge is 22 stitches by 30 rows. It's like a 2x2 rib turtleneck tank top. Love it, totally my style. I love turtleneck tanks, like I wear them all the time. And I've had a few in my wardrobe that like were store-bought ones that I've recently had to purge from my closet because they weren't holding up very well, so I would love to make a new one. My only concern is I have heard some things in the past about this designer making pieces that like once they're knit up they just don't fit very well. I'm a little hesitant about that. If you guys have a different experience with this tank, then like please let me know. I'm still definitely considering it, but a similar thing that I found was the tubular tank by Marl Mockery. The tubular tank is a knitting pattern that uses DK weight yarn, and Well, actually it calls for sport weight yarn and lace yarn held together to make DK. Love that. 16 stitches and 28 rows in the gauge. This is another pattern that I was drawn to simply because there are so many different people and so many different body types in the photo examples of this pattern. Everyone that I saw modeling it looked good on them. This is another ribbed tank top. It doesn't go all the way to a turtleneck, but it does have a higher neckline. I would say on most people it looks like it's sitting right at their collarbones. And it's got some nice ribbing details on the side sleeves. And it looks like on most people, it's cutting off like right around their belly button, like right where some high-waist pants or like a high-waist skirt would sit. So I don't know, the fit of this is exactly what I'm looking for. I even wonder, could I make this tank but then add a turtleneck to it? I wonder if I would get more wear out of it in that case. Either way, really have my eyes on this tank as well. And then the third one that is kind of in that tank top zone of things I'm trying to decide between is the Cecile top by Susan Mueller. This is just a really classic, again, ribbed tank top, but the lines on this are so clean. And I love it has a raw edge on the side, so the seams curl up as they go up the strap of the tank top. I love that. I love a raw edge knit, and I don't actually think I've made any in terms of tops. So I'm just really drawn to like the cleanliness of this one and how much it seems like it would be like a wardrobe basic. This is a knitting pattern that is knit up in fingering weight yarn. The gauge is 25 stitches and 34 rows, so teeny weeny tiny. That is the only thing, like I feel like I would be full steam ahead with this one, but it seems like it's like teeny weeny tiny. I think all of these tank tops I would want to make, but they're all kind of like in this category of like they have a lot of pros, like I really want to make them, but they all have a con where I'm like, I could kind of take it or leave it. So please let me know if you have a preference between those three. I would love to hear it. Let's do a crochet tank top. This is the Viva tank top by Sheila Mudowi. This is crocheted in worsted weight yarn using a 4mm hook. I was drawn to this one because I really love the shape of it. It uses like some sort of shell pattern, but it's cool because basically you're making the straps and then you're just fanning out the torso from the points of the straps, which is really cool because it means that the longer it gets, the fuller the top gets. What's also really cool is with all the projects that I'm seeing on Ravelry, people really did all different lengths on this. So it looks like you could almost do like a bralette length, or I'm even seeing a dress in here, which is pretty cool. Just from looking at photos, this looks like the kind of crochet project that would be like a really fun, mindless, repetitive pattern to get into. I have some more tops, as I said. I will link this board in the description below so you guys can check it out. I do just want to mention one last one though that I just kind of can't get out of my mind. This is the Doodles top by Yumiko Alexander. This is a knitting pattern that's knit up in DK weight yarn. The gauge is 16 stitches and 21 rows, and it's customizable. You can knit it in either a long sleeve version or a sleeveless version. Love that because it means that you can even go into it planning to make the sleeve version and then get to the sleeves and decide I'm actually done knitting. Honestly, like I believe that this is the designer modeling this design. I think she looks so chic and cool in these photos. And this was one of those things that I saw her wearing this and I was like, yeah, I want to look that cool and chic. This one is really catching my eye because the stitch pattern in this is using lace and like, I don't know if you're switching to bigger needles or if you're using a thinner yarn at certain points, but it has varying levels of thickness and airiness throughout. So it's like certain points it'll be mesh, certain points it'll have holes, and certain points it'll be pretty much opaque, but it's all in this like open gauge knit, which I think to me feels very like Diane Keaton at the beach, which is exactly what I'm hoping my whole new wardrobe feels like. The designer calls for silk yarn for this one. I am more drawn to making the sleeved version, so I don't know if I would end up using silk because it's expensive, but we'll see. Would say that like I want to make this one in a fun color, but honestly the stitch pattern is so funky that I kind of like what the designer did when she made this in like an ivory white color. I think that's really pretty. All right, let us move on to things that aren't tops. So I have two different skirts to show you here. The first, I don't know how to say the designer's name, but it's the Lindel skirt. This is a knitting pattern and it is knit up in fingering weight yarn. The gauge is 14 stitches and 28 rows. Now, this is the prettiest thing I've ever seen. I don't know how hard it is to knit. It looks seemingly impossible to me, but I thought I would show it to you because it's pretty. The little blurb about this one is the Lindle skirt is part of my Lindle collection, which focuses on short row knitting techniques and highlights the way color pools within areas of the design. The short row shapes used in this skirt are unique in that they cascade from the waistband to the hemline in an ever-increasing gradation from smaller to larger shapes and back again. The linear element of the skirt is very flattering to all body types. I just think this is such a creative use of short rows. I've been getting better at short rows recently, so I think the idea of using short rows as an exercise in creating fun shapes in knit sounds really fun to me. The other thing I love is garter stitch. I love garter stitch pieces, and I don't have any because I always say that I want to make them and then I just never get around to it. Yeah, I love the idea of this one. I am just really intimidated by it. The gauge is also so small on it, so I don't know how likely it is that I'll get around to making it, but one of you should, so I thought I'd show it to you. The next skirt pattern I think is a pretty popular one. This is the Lime Skirt by LaPool. I've seen this come up a few times on Instagram when people are looking for fun skirt patterns. Knitting pattern that uses sport weight yarn, and the gauge is 26 stitches by 34 rows. But what's cool is from a first look at this pattern, I would have sworn it was crochet because it's like mesh, but it's knitting. I don't know how you do that with knitting, so that's why I'm kind of interested in this one. Also, it's like the mesh is on like a diagonal. I'm just fascinated by the whole thing, to be honest. I just think my curiosity is killing me with this one, so this might have to be the year that I make that. The next is a shorts pattern, and I think these are so cute. I love the idea of knitting or crocheting pants, but every time I see pants that are knit or crocheted, honestly, like I just don't really like the look of them. These shorts are a little different. So these are the Little Daisy shorts by Elise Bonale. They are a knitting pattern that is knit up in fingering weight yarn, and the gauge is 24 stitches by 30 rows. I love this because it uses a few different elements. So the body of the shorts it's knit up in stockinette, but there's also a cute little tie waistband situation going on, and there's also these little eyelet lace details running up the sides and around the bottom of the waistband, and then right before the ribbing on the bottom, which I just think is so cute. It's like these just look so cutesy wootsy, and I like how in the sample photos they have it paired with just like a plain white t-shirt. I think that's like exactly how I would wear something like this. To me, this is like an actual practical knit short. So I really like the idea of these. This is another design that is suggested to be knit up in linen. I'm actually wondering if I could use Purl Soho linen quill again for these, because I just loved working with this yarn and they have so many fun colorways in it. That's actually it for bottoms, and that is like all of the bottoms that I have on this board. Let's move on to the one accessory that I have on here that is not a sock. This is the Elise scarf by Suzanne Mueller. This is a knitting pattern that calls for light fingering weight yarn. The gauge is 24 stitches and 40 rows. I think probably because we are just coming out of the holiday season where people were gift knitting, and because we're still in winter, I'm seeing a lot of people making Sophie scarves right now. I've never made a Sophie scarf actually. I love the look of them. I think that they're so chic. I feel like for me, I would get bored with the repetitive stitch of it all, so I wanted something that felt like a Sophie scarf but had a bit more texture to it and would like use my brain a bit more and wasn't constantly increasing. And this checked off all those boxes. So she has it styled in two different ways. She has it styled as like a little neckerchief, but she also has it styled as a headband, which I think is kind of what I'm liking. Obviously my hair is really short right now, but it's about to start growing out. And when this haircut grows out, it looks so awkward. So I like having pieces that help disguise that, and I think that this would be the perfect way to do it. I think this would be a really fun piece to work up in like a really fun bright red or something. That would be a nice pop of color in an outfit, maybe like a bright orange or something. Definitely something solid because I would want these lace details to really sing. I also love that the border is like this garter stitch border and the body of the scarf is stockinette. But then every few rows there's these lace little holes that I think are so delicate and beautiful, and they go in a diagonal. So I don't know, I feel like every row would be a little bit different, but it looks like it would be repetitive enough that you could kind of just get in a flow with it, because it looks like you stopped doing the increases pretty early on in the project. So that's the Elise scarf. Really into the idea of making that. Again, I'm just like dying to make things that are small, and quick. Another random little thing that I don't know if I would make it, but I am drawn to the idea of doing some home decor because I'm going to be moving. I stumbled on this Joyful Kitties pillow by Cherie Marie Leck, and this is a knitting pattern that uses worsted weight yarn. The gauge is 15 stitches by 30 rows, and it's just a cute little tapestry pillow using garter stitch of a cat. Pillows are so fun because you basically just make a square and then you sew it together, or at least all the ones that I've made have been that way. And I'm a cat mom, and I love the idea of decorating the apartment with some cat stuff. I also love, I haven't purchased this pattern so I can't say for sure, but I love that the charts of this look simple enough that you could probably customize it just a bit. Like my cat is gray and has some lighter gray stripes, and I wonder if I would be able to add that into this. But I don't know, I love this idea. All right, I have a few socks here. Let's just talk about two because you guys can check the rest of them out. If you guys have been watching my last few videos, you know that like I'm obsessed with the idea of making socks right now. So I have a few socks on this board. I have a feeling by the time I post this video, I will have even more socks. I think I want to focus more on just like the basics of socks right now. And then I will work more on color work socks once I really make sure that I understand my sizing, because just in making my first pair of socks, I don't know, I just need to customize the patterns I'm working with and understand like my foot sizing in order to make sure that I get the right fit every time. So I want to make sure that I get that down before I do color work. And so I love these Leap Year socks by Summer Lee because there's a little bit of texture going on here with the ribbing. She also is using color in a way that I think will be more accessible to me as a new sock knitter. She has the stripes on the ribbing at the cuff, and then there's a contrast color all throughout the body of the sock, and then she brings up one of the ribbing colors again in the toe. I love that. I'm also seeing just like what I'm looking at in this sock in terms of stitches. It looks very similar to the socks that I've been making thus far, and so I think that this is gonna be a project that's gonna be really manageable for me. This is the Fairy Maiden socks. This is by This Handmade Life. Oh, I don't think I mentioned this about the Summer Lee socks, but those socks are free, and this pattern is as well. I just love these because they have this really pretty tulip cable going all the way down the socks, and in this design I think it's so pretty that she's making it look like the cable tulips are melting from the ribbing. Like, that's so cool. The ribbing goes down into the cables themselves and it almost creates like a braid all throughout the sock down to the toe. I'm definitely not at a stage with my sock knitting where I could do these yet, but I think towards the end of spring I definitely could. So these are high on my list. That's all. My mouth is so dry. I need to wrap this up and stop talking. So that's all. I hope that that more casual format of pattern sharing was okay with you guys, but I just wanted to tell you kind of where my head is at going into the spring, and also just give you guys a heads up that I'm probably gonna be working on spring patterns sooner rather than later, and I'll definitely get more use out of those where I'm going. So I'm excited. It'll be fun. I'm like switching up the way that I normally think about my crafting. So, but anyway, I just wanted to share those with you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't been keeping along, I am vlogging my entire trip here in Canada and all the knitting adventures that I'm getting up to within it. So please be sure to check out some of those vlogs. As of right now and uploading this video, I have 3 out, and there will be a 4th one out this weekend at the time of posting this. So please be sure to subscribe to my channel also so that you don't miss any of those videos. And also, if you're not already, please be sure to follow me on Instagram. I'm @_thedropstitch. And I'll see you in the next one. Have a good week. Please be sure to drink some water, stretch your wrists, and please purl responsibly. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!